Kits and wagers, business end of the season, game week 32. We have 6 bets for everyone, 6 games items, joined by Chris Owen. Chris, coming to us from the East Coast, the Southeast Coast of America. Chris, enjoy the sunshine here. We got a little bit of sun in Michigan. We got 50 degrees, but not as nice as where you are.
Yeah, we I'm caught a little flight yesterday. We have our good friend and colleague John McKechnie, big RotoWire guy as well. He's getting married here in Miami this weekend. So down here, and it is like set 80 degrees and sunny. I guess it is the morning, so it's a little cooler than 80 degrees, but pretty nice. A vast difference from where I normally am, which is Seattle, which is typically 50 and rainy. So here we are. We have a big weekend of bets here. The Masters is on. It's springtime, the business end of the season. We're going to be covering 6 games plus, our general thoughts, and I could not be more excited.
Yeah, John actually is 100% on his bets on this show. So
Yeah, yep,
he's just living and dying by Brighton money line.
exactly.
His one his one bet he took this season. So he has a better record than us. So maybe he should be doing the show instead.
I
Um,
I should have asked him for his bet before the show to get us one bet to continue that record, or maybe he just stays 1-0 for all
he's probably
lifetime.
a little busy, is what we'll say. He might be a little busy, prepping,
Yeah.
prepping, prepping for the marriage. But speaking of Brighton, that is the one game here. And before we get in, rotowire.com/soccer for all your soccer needs. We have a betting code, no longer a trial. We have a betting code, ROTO15, ROTO15. Get that 15% off on anything, any subscription over at RotoWire. But the first game Chris is talking about is that Brighton team, the biggest favorite of the week. Maybe unsurprisingly, they're minus 340 to win. Leicester City, who have gone 8 straight league games. It's like 1,300, 1,400 minutes without a goal. They're plus 900 to win this game. Draw is at plus 475. Tough times for Ruud van Nistelrooy. Not a ton of injuries they're dealing with. But Brighton actually have more issues. Miedema picked up some kind of knock at some point this week. Jean-Paul Van Heck is suspended, so they have to switch up their back line a little bit. Still doesn't matter to the odds makers. Brighton are still a big favorite. Does it change your mind at all? Are Leicester just a lost cause at this point with Jamie Vardy leading the line?
I mean, it pains me to say that they're a lost cause because Vardy is an all-time goated forward in the EPL. But yeah, they can't score. Well, there's I think they broke. I forget how many games it is, but I think they broke some sort of record for not scoring in away games. They've been shut out in a ton of these games lately, and
It's
just
home
generally
games.
have. Is it home games? Okay,
Yeah,
but
because
generally have struggled against everyone.
I think their one win was at Tottenham. 2-1 win at Tottenham. Before that, that's why it's the home games where
Yeah,
the streak of home games where they haven't scored.
yeah. I mean, and to be fair, away as well, they have not been scoring any goals. They were shut out.
No.
They've been shut out in 3 of their past 4 away games. So they, broadly, you could say they don't know how to score goals, whether it's home or away, home especially. But Brighton, yeah, missing Matoma is a big miss. Probably their best attacking player, and so that's a concern. But I just think that overall, you look at the odds at minus 340, like huge favorites here. And I expect Brighton to kind of cruise here. I'm going to just keep this one simple and go with what we've talked about, which is the Leicester being unable to score. You hate to say it's Jamie Vardy's fault, but just him leading the line and their kind of lack of quality in general has affected them and their inabilities to find the back of the net. So I'm taking Brighton money line and clean sheet. I think just the clean sheet is minus 115 though.
I don't know. No, this is your bet. You should know this.
Yeah, it's team clean sheet is minus 115.
Oh, just a
It's
clean
not
sheet.
money line. Yeah.
Okay. We could
But
figure
you
out
could
what we're
spice it
at.
up and go Brighton money line and clean sheet. I think the clean sheet is just minus 115 on DraftKings.
I'll put it together right now and see what the odds look like.
But yeah, I mean, head over to the expected lineups on RotoWire, and you're like, oh, where's the goal going to come from for Leicester? And
Do you want money line here?
no, I want to just clean sheet, which
You
is
just want clean
Brighton
sheet.
clean
Okay.
sheet, yeah, which is minus
Okay.
115.
All right. We'll remove Brighton money line from this. You don't believe Brighton can win, is what you're saying.
I mean, I do. You could also go that. Let's see, team props. It's on under team props on here. Tough out of the gates. Who, our Brighton team clean sheet is minus 115.
Okay, a win and a clean sheet. I'm seeing plus 102. This is over at DraftKings, is where I'm looking at. Okay, so we'll just do a team clean sheet. So we'll remove Brighton money line. Chris has no faith in Brighton money line. Only faith in the clean sheet.
Just a 0-0 draw is what I'm actually chasing.
I will say Leicester have lost. So we mentioned that Tottenham match. They've lost 15 of their last 16 league games, and Chris is uncertain about Brighton money line.
Okay, you could add money line there. Just update the odds, but yeah, I was going with based on their
No, I mean,
clean sheet,
if this ends in a scoreless draw, I don't want you coming for my head. So
you talked me out of it literally on the podcast.
We'll see what happens, and then give you the benefit of the doubt if it is a scoreless draw.
I love the ambiguity of it all.
You need the dub, is what we're saying. You need the dub.
Yeah.
The next game we're going to, Crystal Palace are at Manchester City. Crystal Palace, one of the most informed teams in the league. Still, Manchester City minus 195 to win. Crystal Palace plus 475. The big thing here is probably that Mark Gahey is suspended after last week's match. Nothing changes for Man City. And you just have the change in the back line for Crystal Palace. Though American Chris Richards, he was back in training this week, so he could be back in the starting 11 for Palace there. I wanted this game because I don't know if I want to say I was screwed a couple times last week, but I came on this show, I gave some corner bets. I mentioned Fulham money line against Liverpool. I ended up taking race to 5 corners. They won the race at 3 corners, and they finished on 4 corners because they didn't need any more goals. They didn't need to press anymore. So I lost that one. And then specifically in this Man City, in the Manchester Derby, I took Manchester United under 4.5 corners. Guess what? They had 2 corners in right at the end of the game, back to back, and they finished with 5 corners. So I'm going back to this one, and instead I'm just going to Man City. I thought the odds were kind of bad last week, but now we're back to getting good odds on Man City under corners bets. Manchester City under 6.5 corners is minus 105 odds. I think last week their over under was, I want to say 5.5, so I wasn't as comfortable taking that, but I've kind of been on this train of Man City under corner bets. And if you look back at the recent games, they haven't had more than 5 corners. I think it's since the FA Cup match against Plymouth. So they had basically under fewer than 5 corners in their last 5 games: at Nottingham Forest, home against Brighton, at Bournemouth, home against Leicester. They only had 5 corners in that game. They won 2-0, had 72% possession. They only had 5 corners in that game. This isn't just the same team that's just going to be sitting in the attacking third and just peppering crosses for Haaland, because they don't have the giant in the center to cross to, first off. So you remove that from the situation, and with how they've played, they're just not getting as many corners. So I don't think they're getting to 7 corners, and we're getting even odds on it. So under 6.5 corners, minus 105.
It's a classic, we're back to more corner spots here. Yeah, Haaland is a big miss for them for sure. I mean, they'll have to do, what is it, Marmoush up top?
Yeah, more or less Marmoush, and I think Foden,
Savinho,
kind of was there in a recent game, but it's mostly Marmoush and this false 9-ish role.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, 2 kind of big injuries there. You mentioned Haaland, obviously, which we discussed, and then Mark Gahey just potentially being suspended. And then the other thing you meant, so I don't know the severity of Chris Richards' calf injury, but he said he's back in training. If they're missing both their center backs, that's a little bit of a concern here for Palace too.
They started Lerma at center back in their last game, and I think Joel Ward came on at some point. So
which
not what you
you
want.
think, not what we're chasing here for facing Manchester City, but it'll be interesting to see if Richards can come back into the lineup here. That's a big boost for them. But yeah, I mean, Palace has been so good. Looking back at some of their previous fixtures here too, like Palace is, they've held City in 3 of the past 5 matches to a draw. So they have. It's not like it's foreign territory for them to get points off of City. And then you couple that with kind of their informedness for Palace, and I could see them maybe taking a point here.
I was actually looking at the under in this game because I was similarly looking at the under in the last Man City game in the Derby there. If you look at the last 4 of the last 5 games, each of these teams, both teams have scored at least 2 goals in 4 of the last 5 meetings, which is like kind of just a crazy number. It comes to mind just every game. Crystal Palace seems to get a goal on the counter, whether it's like Mateta or Eze or Olise, just going on the counter and killing Man City. It seems like it happens every game, and that's just one thing that kind of comes to mind when these teams play. So I would say Man City, they're just not really playing the same as they've played in those prior seasons where they're not sitting in like the attacking third the entire game. And so it is a little different, but either way, under 6.5 corners, -105 odds. We're going to one of my games again because I'm also talking on a Saturday match. Nottingham Forest are home against Everton. The odds in this one, you don't usually see this where the odds don't really change throughout the week, but Nottingham Forest +110 odds to win, Everton +265. Interestingly, odds haven't changed though. We have these injuries with Nottingham Forest where Chris Wood is still hurt, Iwani's still hurt, Ola Aina's still hurt, and Elanga picked up something last week. He only went 45 minutes. So you have all these attacking players, probably their best fullback defensively, and we kind of saw them make a couple mistakes at Aston Villa last week. Lost that one 2-1. Alex Moreno back in the 11. He couldn't play against Aston Villa for loan reasons. But like if we look at their lineup, we remove, Chris Wood. Okay, they're obviously their top number 9, and then their backup number 9 in Iwani. They don't really have a central forward if both those guys are out. And Elanga has been really good on the wing this season. So you take those guys out. Maybe Joe Silva comes in. Maybe someone else comes in. There's just questions here with Nottingham Forest. But I think that the way Everton have been playing under Moyes is going to – I just like the odds a little bit on this bet here. I'm taking both teams to score. -110 odds. You look at this game, it's like, okay, Nottingham Forest has a good defense. Everton has a good defense. But I think if you just look at the recent games here of Everton under Moyes, they're attacking more. Their defense hasn't been as sound. A lot of these games are 1-1. And then the mistakes Nottingham Forest made, the injuries in Nottingham Forest side, I think that just adds to, I think we could be looking at like a 1-1 kind of result in this one. So getting even odds, -110 odds. What are your thoughts here on this game? I almost considered under 2.5, but I'm riding no on both teams to score, or yes on both teams to score.
Yeah, interesting bet. We didn't mention it in the last game, but this I think last week they announced, was it this week or last? It was this week, that the Premier League will get that 5th Champions League spot
after so Arsenal win. The Arsenal win confirmed
the coefficient. Mm-hmm. For all those big math coefficient folks, says they're going to get a 5th one. So this is we didn't mention this with City, but there's a lot at stake here for whether it's Forest or City. It's so tight for those 4. Between what is it? Pretty much 7th place and 3rd place. It's about 6 points. So there's just kind of on a knife's edge, if you will. So for this game, it's huge for Forest to go out and kind of bounce back from last week's result against Villa. Villa came out and they were up 2-0 in the first 15 minutes. I think Morgan Rogers scored the first one, and I forget who scored the second one. But once Forest kind of goes down, 2-0 in the first 15 is immediately going to make them switch from what how they want to play. Which is kind of staying back and being able to ping teams on the corner or on the counter. So once that happened, they were cooked. You kind of just all right, they're gonna have to either battle back and play a little bit different kind of possession based style. So that kind of that hurt them. But I think against Everton, like both teams are kind of built. I don't want to say the same way, but they're the way they want to.
Similarly,
They
low
yeah, the way they want.
blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, low blocks. The way they want to win games is by, hitting on the counter. And so I'm interested to see this. Like, does it? It doesn't. I can't see it becoming like a track meet, per se, because of how they play. But it's like two teams, like it's like the Spider-Man meme. They're both looking at each other. They're both like pointing at each other, looking the exact same thing. One team just does it significantly better than the other. So I don't know how this one's going to go, but the boat like a 1-1 maybe is what you're seeing here, or a 2-1.
Yeah, kind of what you said. I agree with that. Usually in games like this where both teams kind of bring the same kind of style, while, all the recent games, okay, under goals, clean sheets and stuff. But when they play against each other, these are the type of games that are, okay, maybe there are going to be goals because both teams are playing a little different than they're normally playing. So, yeah, this feels like a game that could be 2-2, and everyone's like, oh, okay. Just one of these games because these teams are just going on the counter against each other kind of a thing. But pulled up the table here. So Nottingham Forest, as you said, like these are going to be pretty big games. If we look at the other teams below them, so all season Nottingham Forest hasn't had injury issues. Now they're having some problems with injuries. And you look at the teams below them, Chelsea, Newcastle, Man City, Aston Villa. Basically, all those teams are getting healthier than they've been all season, maybe outside of Holland there for Man City. But I find it pretty interesting here. And Forest in the spot, like they can't, at this point, they can't drop points while all these other teams are getting healthy and they're battling injuries. So it's got kind of a precarious position, I'd say, for Nottingham Forest, though. With the top 5 spots getting Champions League, that helps. But, Man City are 6th place on 5 points behind Nottingham Forest. So maybe not a massive deal for them.
And just like the pedigree of kind of being there before, this is uncharted territory for Forest.
Yeah.
So you start to drop points to, Aston Villa, maybe that's a tough game to drop, but not totally unexpected. But you start to drop points to teams like Everton, and you're coming down the stretch, and you might kind of like get that doubt in your mind. So this is a big game for them. I think it's 3 points they got to have.
Yeah, we've seen with Arsenal in recent seasons, their sphincters start to tighten a little bit here.
Exactly.
Towards the end of the season, and they're not playing like the same team they have played like the first 5 months. And, they're looking at the table and it's like, okay, we need points. We can't drop points. And they're thinking about that in the middle of the game. And then that just turns into losses. So pretty big end of the season where I definitely don't think it's guaranteed that they're going to finish in a Champions League spot. So again, pretty big game for him. But we're moving on to Sunday for Chris here. He's got, I told him that this was a layup, a bet here on this game. Newcastle minus 150 to win, Manchester United plus 380 to win. I will say here for this Manchester United game, coming off Thursday, I read the press conference from Ruben Amorim this season. Someone actually asked him if he was going to drop Bruno Fernandes because of, for rest. He's played every game this season, more or less. And he was like, it's a possibility. We have a small squad, so we can't rotate a ton. I don't think it's going to happen, but someone asked it either way. I think the one thing looking in this is Newcastle are outside of Anthony Gordon. They're pretty healthy. They're rested. They don't have to worry about midweek. Manchester United, they were at Lyon on Thursday, and they don't rotate a ton. So pretty interesting situation here. So what's your read on the game?
Yeah, you put some good juju on me here. You're like, oh, that looks like a layup. And I was like, does it? Going through all the odds, I was like, wait a sec. Like, look at them. I was like, oh, there must be like a cheeky money line bet to be had for Newcastle at home, or like something must be up. And I looked at it. I was like, oh, there's actually not that, it's kind of a tough game. United, are United. They're, boldly disappointing. Newcastle obviously still coming off kind of the high of that cup win, and like we said, fighting for some European places here. So this is it's like, can United drop any further while Newcastle needs to keep winning in order to get that 5th Champions League spot? But I actually really like Newcastle in this spot. They're so tough at home. and United away they're pretty they're not great. So Anthony Gordon being kind of a late call is a bit of a concern because, aside from Alexander Isak, he's probably their second best player on the pitch. So if he plays, I really like this bet a little bit more. But I think
Harvey Barnes has been doing well.
Yeah, that's true. Also, another part of this here is Newcastle full week of rest. However, Man United are coming off a Europa as a quarterfinals for them. They played Lyon, yeah, and there's some big quotes out of the pregame, but out of Onana and then Matic, I think, from Lyon. But anyways, so they're coming. They played Thursday, so this is a little bit of a quick turnaround here, which we know can affect teams. So I actually like Newcastle. I have the spread here. It's minus 1.5 and kind of some decent odds. It's plus 165. So I kind of expect Newcastle to take it to United here, maybe like a 2-0 is what I'm chasing. So yeah, Newcastle minus 1.5. Are you with this? Do you see any concerns where, United bounce back from a short week and are ready to go again here? Or are you thinking Newcastle are able to cover this one up?
I got a couple different thoughts. I like the bet, I will say, just because, no midweek stuff for Newcastle. This is a game they can play up for. Manchester United, it's always fun to beat up on Manchester United. I think that's the one thing you kind of look at in this matchup and why I'd probably lean on Newcastle. Though Manchester United have been playing better lately. 1 loss in their last 10 matches in all competitions. And you could look at that stat and kind of be on Manchester United in this spot. But again, now we're building up these games with Europa League. Maybe it's going to get to them because, prior that there wasn't – I guess they had they had the Real Sociedad games. They did get some results between there. They had the result against Arsenal. So, I don't know. This is I would lean Newcastle just because of the form they're in and they're at home. But I do think it can't be discounted the way that Manchester United are playing lately. I do like the under. You mentioned 2-0. I would like under 2.5 at plus 125 because I just think Manchester United are kind of going to go into this and try and get another scoreless draw more or less and go in, not try and get any more injuries and be 100% for the second leg against Lyon. I think that's kind of what their mindset's going to be.
Yeah, just kind of play conservatively here, stay healthy, be ready for that next game next week.
Yeah, take your chances like they did against Manchester City. Maybe they'll get them, maybe they won't. But
that was one of the worst Manchester derbies that we've seen in quite some time, I feel like. But yeah,
I said it was going to be
a result on it. Like the 0-0 is bigger for them than it is for City for sure.
I said it was going to be a dead game. I should have taken.
Yeah, you called it all the way. You were like Nostra Adam last week on that game. You called
and then I got
the corners.
I got my bet wrong. So what does it even matter? Does it even matter? Also on Sunday, Wolverhampton are home against Tottenham. Chris got his over 3.5 goals on Tottenham last week. Right, I think it was in stoppage time. It was right at the end of the game. I think it was a late PK that Tottenham got for over 3.5. Wolves are on a nice little run here. They get Matheus Cunha back from what seems like at least a month-long suspension. They kept adding games on to his red card. He had 3 games, and they had 2 more, I think it was. So it feels like he hasn't been around for a while. But Wolverhampton plus 125 to win. Tottenham plus 210 to win. Tottenham also coming off a Thursday match, slightly disappointing, 1-1 home draw against Eintracht Frankfurt. But I think looking at what my bet is here, so I think this is a game where Tottenham's matches have been a little lower scoring lately. If we get a lot of the results, even though they're getting some guys back, maybe that's good defensively, but I don't think their attack is fully clicking. If we're looking at some of these recent results, held scoreless at Fulham, held scoreless at Chelsea. Okay, they got the win against Southampton, another 1 goal against Frankfurt. So I don't think they've actually been clicking offensively, and Wolverhampton's defense has been kind of their highlight here. And I'm just going with I'm going with one of Chris's bets. 2 to 3 goals scored in the goal band here. 2 to 3 goals scored plus 110 odds. So I think this is just like another 1-1, 2-1 kind of game. And I was gonna lean on the under, but I was hoping it'd be under 3.5, but that's like minus 150 or something. So I'm just going 2 to 3 goals scored. I think it's gonna be the 1-1, 2-1 kind of game, plus 110 odds. Chris, do you approve of this bet?
This is like a scared bet. I'll say it.
This is a perfect bet.
This is a scared bet when you look through the whole odds of the game and you're like, oh, okay, don't like money line, don't like the over under, don't like the corners, no good odds on goal scoring props. What should I go with? And you're like, I don't know if I can find what I'm looking for. And then,
well, I thought I was going to get
that, Adam.
I thought I was going to get good odds on under 3.5, but sorry, under 3.5 is minus 205. So I had to think of another option because I think
that's crazy. That's insane. So you have to go to what, minus 2.5 to get like.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do that because I do think 2-1's in play. So I was like, let's do the goal band here.
Okay, that's fair, but I'll just mentally when I do these types of bets, it's because I've looked everywhere else and I couldn't find something with good odds, so I go to the goal bands bet.
I'm not scared. I'm never scared.
Okay, just say whatever you want to tell yourself for sure.
Yeah, the one thing I was surprised in this game was that Wolverhampton are minus 125 to win in this spot. Like if you gave those odds, I don't know, before the season 5 months ago, it'd be like, what's going on here? And Wolverhampton are just like
plus 125, not minus 125.
Sorry, plus 125. But Wolverhampton are just figuring things out defensively, and I don't know. It seems like pretty extreme odds for Wolverhampton to win.
Yeah, that does seem very off considering, but maybe they're kind of baking in Tottenham having to. I guess they were in London for that first leg of the Europa League match with Frankfurt, but maybe they're just like baking in the quick turnaround. I don't know. That's weird, but
they haven't been that good. I don't know.
Yeah, because I guess you kind of see that with Newcastle being they're both United and Tottenham short week traveling, and they're like kind of big underdogs.
Yeah, Chelsea they're minus 360, and they're home against Ipswich, so they don't really have that same situation. So
yeah.
And they rotate a bit more in their squad for Conference League. But Monday Night Football, final game we're talking about here, Bournemouth are at home, plus 115. So similar odds to that Wolverhampton match. Bournemouth are plus 115 to win, Fulham plus 225. We still got the injury issues with a bunch of Bournemouth guys. Doesn't look like any of them are ready to start. Tavernier, Clivert, and Sinistera. Christie is out for the season. I know where you're going here, but are you worried at all about some of these Bournemouth injuries and they're struggling a little bit?
I am a little bit more worried after I sent my bet. And I kind of looked at it and liked the matchup, but I feel a little more worried about it. My bet is Bournemouth money line plus 115. But yeah, the injuries are tough. Their form is tough. They've had some matchups that are maybe less than ideal. They're coming off a draw against West Ham that maybe you would have hoped that they would have won. It was away, but that loss to Ipswich was no good. Like they've dropped some pretty big games here lately, and I just wonder if it's like the pressure or the length of the season that's getting to them. Meanwhile, Fulham coming off a pretty big win against Liverpool 3-2 last weekend, in which they just like kind of got on them early and often, 3 goals in the first half. So I think if Bournemouth can kind of hold tough for the first half, I like them to maybe pull away in the second half, but we'll see. As I made this bet and I thought more about it, I got my how strongly I feel about this bet has maybe gone down a little bit. But just at home, they're on the South Coast. Who says they can't get a money line bet here? A win with all 3 points at plus 115.
They haven't won in their last 8 matches in all competitions.
Yeah, it's tough. They've gotten a couple draws in there, but I do feel like these injuries have piled up for them.
Yeah, their defense. I mean, the way they play with their press, and when they lose the ball out of that press, it just leads to advantages for the other team when they're attacking, which has just kind of been a problem for them lately. So, yeah, I think it's still pretty interesting odds that they're plus 115 here. But
I mean, they're Clivert's a big miss for them for sure. He's been great this season, but Semenyo is fit. Their whole back line, I think, for the most part, is fit. I mean, yeah, it looks so. A little bit of question marks, with you mentioned Christie, which is the three big misses there. But yeah, I mean, I think from a defensive standpoint, they're pretty stout and should be okay there. And the question mark is the thing about the high press is like if you win the ball and you're trying to turn it over or go back at the team on the counter, it's like you want those players to be able to pick those passes, especially if you want it in a dangerous place. And it feels like that's kind of missing right now. So if they can kind of link that up and win balls up high up the pitch and do that, they'll be in better shape. But it's they have some guys who need to come up big.
Yeah, I kind of also like both teams to score over 2.5 goals. That's -115. And I think that's like it's hit in 6 of their last 7, 7 of their last 8, something like that. So just a bet that, given how poor defensively they've been, just makes sense. But those are 6 bets there, Chris. Chris has to go enjoy the weather down where he is.
At some point today, yes, we'll get out there.
At some point today, he'll enjoy the sun. Any other thoughts here? Here is the cheat sheet over at rotowire.com/soccer. Chelsea are the biggest favorite. Those odds actually moved. It used to be Brighton. Now it's Chelsea. How do you think your Liverpool side, they're gonna see that solid contract and be like, yeah, let's play for Mo. Let's put it on.
I think he hasn't scored in 6 matches. And he's due. I think, it's because he's been like, all right, I'm going to sign a fat contract for 2 more years, stay at Anfield, further my legacy. That was, yeah. So I think, if I was going to take a Liverpool bet, which I did not, I was going to have to pick maybe a Mo anytime goal scoring odds, which is, if I could quickly look that up,
it's probably like -150. It's actually on the sheet. Luckily for us, we have the sheet. -115. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Pretty low.
My guess was gonna be -125, but maybe a Liverpool money line bet for and solid goal. Just the man, pay the man. I love their graphic. First of all, I woke up this morning and obviously the news this week was that both Van Dijk and Salah are gonna re-sign short 2-year deals, and great way to wake up on a Friday. I'll say that. But yeah, they're pretty heavy favorites here, but otherwise. There's some other good games out here. It's the business end of the season. We're ready to rock. Mo Salah signed his contract. But the graphic that they had for the earlier in the season when they interviewed him, I think it was probably December or January, and he was like, I'm more out than in. And then the graphic they posted on Twitter was more in than out. And I was like, that's so good. That's fun. I don't know. So that was a cool way to announce it.
Yeah, it's been a fun season for these Liverpool rumors. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Alexander-Arnold is going to be on the good side of these contracts.
It's always this has been the most toxic conversation with lately with Trent, because they're trying to re-sign him. He's not going to re-sign. He's going to go to Real. But you get people, supporters of the team that are like, oh, he's a traitor. He's a turncoat. He's going over. He's 26 years old and wants to go to another country, and get paid a lot of money and win more trophies. He's some terrible person. Meanwhile, he's going to go to one of the most beautiful cities and play for the most illustrious club. So right. And he's 26. I wish I was 26 and could go to Madrid and live out my life. So good for him. Whatever, I'm over it.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. If put us in those shoes instead of living in Liverpool for the first however many years of my life and just and in this team and every season it's okay. We got the league but I don't know. Mix things up a little bit is what is what we can say.
Having been to both cities, it's like Madrid way better than Liverpool, by
I don't think there's a reason why it's popular to vacation in Spain for people who live in England. And would you rather live and play in a place of like that? Probably, where you're also getting more money. So that's all we got, though, Chris. We have to start our work days here. We are people who have jobs and not just bet on soccer. But Chris, thank you for these bets. Let's win some money here. And maybe we'll get a few drinks in. Let's see, Saturday night is the wedding, I think.
Yep.
We'll say
Yeah,
Saturday night's the
night.
wedding. We'll get a few drinks in John, and Chris will get a soccer bet out of him. He'll just like blurt out a team name that he's familiar with, and we'll go money line, and he'll probably go 2-0 on the season, and we'll be like, okay.
He's an Arsenal guy, I think, but mostly because of like 2005 FIFA. So I think we'll get an Arsenal bet out of him, maybe.
That's good stuff. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure to give a thumbs up, and we'll see everyone for Game Week 33.